Laughter and tears. Laughter and tears have marked my life, especially my later years. I could have cried when Abraham, or Abram as he was known then, said that God had told him to leave his father's house in Haran and set off for goodness knows where. We were both already well on in years. It was time to think about winding down, not setting out on a journey of exploration. But I trusted him totally. I knew he loved me. He said I was well named because I was his little princess, Sarai. But I knew that his name was painful to him. Abram, exalted father. And because my years for bearing children were long in the past, we knew that name would never be fulfilled. And many a night I cried the whole night through. Yet God had promised that if we trusted him and went where he led, he would make Abram into Abraham, the father of many as the grains of sand on the shore and the stars scattered across the sky. But that blessing was not to be ours unless we left the security of home and went where God would lead. So we set off from Haran in search of this land of promise, this place where old people give birth. And we ended up in Egypt during a time of famine. And our journey nearly ended there when the Pharaoh wanted to claim me as his wife, as if he didn't have enough already. We had both doubted the protection of God. Abraham had pretended I was his sister. When the Pharaoh found out we had lied, we almost died. But we didn't, and we went back to the land of Canaan. You would have thought that would have taught us to trust God more closely and not try to cook up schemes of our own, but no. When it seemed no more likely that I would have a child, I encouraged Abram to father a child on my servant Hagar. We had picked her up when we were down in Egypt, and she had served me well. I'm ashamed to admit it. It wasn't his idea. But he did as I suggested, and he was so proud of the child when it was born. I, on the other hand, even though it was my idea, was driven mad with jealousy. Even before the child was born, Hagar had started to look down at her nose at me as she caressed her belly. And I confess that I treated her so badly that she ran away for a time. But she returned and bore her son Ishmael, a great ox of a child. If only I had trusted God, what pain would have been avoided. God had promised that Abraham and I would give rise to a mighty nation. I, whose body and spirit had dried up, I laughed at the thought of it. And God said our son would be called Laughter, Isaac. And despite my laughter and lack of trust, God fulfilled his promise. 9 months later, I was laughing again, though it made my tired old body ache. Not the cynical laughter of someone who doubts, but the laughter of someone who knows that the impossible has come true. Yet even then, knowing that, I later insisted that Abraham should send Hagar and her child away from our encampment. I didn't care if they lived or died. In fact, I had prayed for the latter. What a thing to do. In my better moments, I recognize it was a dreadful choice to force on Abraham, the father of many, forced, deciding between his children. But Isaac was my child, not Ishmael, and I wanted the best for him. And for love of me, Abram chose. I wonder how many nights of tears this has caused. Laughter and tears. Laughter laced with tears of joy and of sorrow.